walk the highway of life without a safety net, to follow something even bigger than my pride, to show up with courage even when
Hi, I'm Emme Simon, and I'm with Creating a New Normal. And I'm very excited because this is my premiere show, Creating a New Normal. So I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and I was saying to her, you know, what is normal? And what I discovered, many people I work with, they always say they want to get back to normal. But most of the people I'm working with, I work with women who are in transition. They're struggling. Their life is full of stress. They're scared to take that next step forward. Maybe their relationship's not working, or maybe they've just broken up in a relationship. So they're all in transition, and they're feeling lost, and they don't remember who they are. So we were having this discussion, and I realized that creating a new normal is really about going beyond your normal. You know, not having a breakdown, but actually having a breakthrough. I had to remove the blocks, just like a garden hose. Just think about a garden hose. Like if you're trying to water your flowers, if there's a kink in the hose, the water won't go through. Well, the energy won't flow through you, so you have access to your greater mission in life if there's kinks in the way. So I help women actually remove the blocks from the physical body, emotional body, your mental body, to have more access to who you truly are, that spiritual being, so that you can reclaim your authority and author a brand new life of partnership, purpose, prosperity, and play. So I call it my 4 Ps. And so my first P is partnership, because I believe it's first, we've got to partner with ourselves first, and then purpose, because we know we're all here on a mission for something, and my mission is to help you really be who you came here to be. And then third, we're here to really prosper in our life, to have an abundant life. And fourth is play, because I discovered back when I was struggling in my life, I never gave myself any permission to play. And my play comes from my creativity. So I'm giving you some permission to play today with me on creating a new normal by going beyond your normal and creating a life you truly love.
and make my life a work of art. Call me fearless. I am fearless.
Hi, welcome to my show, Creating Your New Normal with Love. I'm so glad you joined me tonight, and I just want to say, let's just take a moment and just stop whatever you're doing and just take a deep breath, because this is time to just spend a little time with me and my friend, my guest here tonight, Gail Courville. She's here with me, and you know, preparing tonight's show, creating a new normal is really all about I had to look at my own self, and it's about, my fear of being a fraud. And what did that mean to me? Maybe people might laugh at me, or you might feel this, like, do you wear a mask? And I realized that my experience is that creating my new normal is really all about being you, being real. And so here tonight, we're going to be talking about 3 things. And those 3 things are going to be on fearless faith. We're going to talk about non-resistance, so embracing what is. And then we're going to talk about love. So tonight we're really going to talk about love. If it's the first time you joined the show, 6 years ago, I actually woke up and I started this journey. And the journey was, what I heard was, I could change my normal. And then I heard I could create a new normal. And in that instance, I realized that I had created everything in my life that I was experiencing. And at the time, it was a lot of struggle and strife. And then I knew that I was responsible. So last week's show, we talked about being the first step of really
is looking inward at ourselves and taking 100% responsibility for our lives. And being able to start where you are. So if you're joining us for the first time tonight with my show, I welcome you to our show. And tonight's a hot topic. It's a topic of love. And what is love? You know, we all love. We all want to love. You know, we all search for love. And I did too. I was always searching for love. I always say somewhat outside of myself. I think we're taught that as a child. And we're going to be having that conversation tonight about that. And, you know, I went to the Bible, and this is not about religion. I went to the Bible to see what the Bible had to say about it. And so what I found, which is a very popular verse, that many weddings, it's 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. And it says here that love is patient, love is kind. And then it goes on to say what love is not, which I'm not going to really read. And then it ends with love is always perfect. Love always trusts. Love always hopes. And love always perseveres. And since the topic is love, I really did some soul searching for myself, because as preparing for this show tonight, again, what reared its head was fear. And I realized my own fear. And I realized that when I am experiencing this fear, I have lost track of who I really am, my real being. So by looking at this fear and just asking myself, what am I afraid of? That's when I came up with, my experience was I was afraid of being a fraud. I was afraid of being laughed at. I was afraid of being embarrassed, or maybe even locked up, you know, like excluded. And I realized, I started looking at, okay, what's the opposite of fear? And I realized that fear is the absence of faith. Fear is the absence of my confidence, my courage, my trust in my God self, my trust in my love. And so what tonight's show is really all about is overcoming our barriers that we may have to love. Now, mine's fear. You know, how many out there I'd like you to raise your hand. How many of you out there tonight have a fear of love? Or maybe have the fear of being excluded, right? Or you could have a fear of being laughed at, just like I, or being called a fraud. You know, how many of you have ever experienced that? Because my experience is that if I'm experiencing this, maybe you are too. Maybe you want to just be real. And maybe you just also want to feel included. Because what I realized for myself, and it's going to be fun talking with my friend Gail here, because what I realized for myself, I worked really hard to fit in my life, to feel loved, thinking that love was outside of me. I worked really hard to put on all these masks to be a good girl, right? Because I realized all the stuff I learned definitely from the age from 0 to 6 was conditional, right? If I was a good girl, my mom would love me. Or if I did this, it was almost like I had to do something to get love. And it was outside of me. And I had to perform in certain ways. And so how many of you might be sitting there, if you're really being honest with ourselves, and just raise your hand, you know? How many of you have some of these fears popping up for you, that you've really became somebody else than who you really are to fit in, to be loved, to be accepted, you know? And so tonight we're going to talk about that fearless faith. We're going to talk about non-resistance with my friend Gail. And we're going to talk, and I love what Gail said when we were talking about this, that non-resistance really is about embracing all there is, embracing it all. And we're going to talk about love. And we're going to talk about overcoming those barriers of love. So I'm going to introduce my friend Gail to you. And Gail has given me a little short bio here. I'm midwife of souls, and I'm so excited because Gail is a host of Serenity Farms. This is a place to go and repose, like to get away and rest in yourself. And her focus is on facilitating the release of physical blocks as a medical intuitive and midwife of soul's purpose. And
sounds like a lot, doesn't it?
Sounds like a lot.
Sounds like a lot.
Yes. Well, we just, we both are conduits for change. We are conduits. And the reason that is because we can do it. We've done it.
We've done it.
Yeah, so welcome, Gail.
Thanks so much, Ellie. No, it's wonderful to have a chance to share with you about the idea of a new normal. It's really, I think, courageous of you to reach out and try to help people, birth a new way of feeling about themselves.
Thank you, Gail. And I just am so glad. One thing I'd like to say is one of those rebirths for me in this process of moving through my fears and having that fearless faith is 5 years ago when I started my journey. In 2012, I was invited to form a group with 3 of my other friends. And we, together, have met every Tuesday night. And we formed a bond of community. And we started studying Mastering the Human Condition.
Yeah.
And that was our first step of really facing our fears and really knowing who we really are.
Yeah.
Getting out of that old way of being and really starting that path of creating our new normal for ourselves. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I so agree. The power of having a like-minded friendship, to have other people join with you in self-exploration, even though you're going deep within, somehow there's that bond of courage when there's friendship, supporting, cheering you on, to dive a little deeper, just ask the hard questions. And you talked about fear coming up, and the conversation is about love tonight, and we haven't gotten there yet.
No.
Because I think that you have to push through fear oftentimes.
Yes.
And where do those fears come from?
Yeah, because when I looked this up and was preparing tonight for the show, I found a word, and it was called, I love language, it was called philophobia. Philo is the Greek word for love.
Wow.
And phobia is fear.
Yeah.
And so this fear of love. And how does those fears of love, we've talked about this, Gail, you and I, about, and I'm just curious, you're sitting at home, do you have a fear of love?
I think I've seen people come and say that, they want this, and mostly if they're not talking about fear, they use another word called pain. They just don't want to feel quite as badly. And sometimes they don't want to move to love. They just want a little less of whatever they're having. And I think this is the gift that, studying together on Tuesday nights has given us, that we want more. We want really to bring other people to wanting more for themselves, because this isn't a planet of pain. It's a beautiful planet. This is a great place to live. We are so abundant and so blessed.
And one of the things that when we say we're conduits for change, I can go back to a personal experience I experienced on my journey. I met Gail one afternoon. I was working, and we met at a little cafe. The sun was shining, and I remembered Gail was just looking, really, not at me, but I was looking into her eyes. And I remember I said, "Oh my gosh, I fell in love with you." It was my first experience, but what I remembered is I remembered my love for me. It was like magical. And that's why I believe the power of community or like-mindedness, because we can be a conduit for you tonight here, remembering your own love for you. Because I love love, and I know Gail.
I love love.
Love love.
And I like the idea that in that moment I was mirroring for Emme the love that she is. And that's, can you imagine how much a community would change if we simply remembered when we were in the world to look at another person and reflect back to them the love child that they are? We're created in love. And even,
Yes.
I'll bring that up and bring up a painful subject. Some people, their roots might not have been in love.
Yes.
But that doesn't make them wrong. Mm-hmm. It might make them curious about how did they miss out on that perfect mom and dad. But we both know it's not about mom and dad. No matter how you cut it, your life is a gift. It's so important to understand that we're here as individuals. Mom and dad, we come through them, but we get that precious time, from our birth date to our end date. We get to be right in the middle, having the adventure called life.
Life. And you know what I love, what you just said? I love that we're the gift. Now, I know this is so fun for me because I love to play. And,
I know that.
And what I realize, sometimes we say when we start looking at our fears, like fear of love might hurt, or love is painful, or love might mean loss, right? Some of you out there might have, are afraid to love because you might lose love. How many out there has lost love? And sometimes we don't want to look inside ourselves and start here with ourselves, because what the thought process out there is like you've got to peel the onion. But this is what I like to look at it. And you reminded me of this, that our life is a gift. And it's not peeling an onion, it's opening up the presence. It's opening up the present that you are here, now, on this planet for a reason. And you are the gift. You are that love. I know that's a big stretch. So I know I go to Unity, and I love my minister. She's been a mentor to me, Reverend Joyce. And I'm just going to put a plug in for Reverend Joyce because this is her last year at Unity. And I've been with her for about 17 years now, 18 almost. And I love what she says, if it's a stretch for you, just put it on a shelf. I'm not asking for you to agree with me tonight or disagree with me tonight. But if I just said, you are love, and if that's a big stretch for you, you might want to say, I might be love. That might be an intermediate, or I have love. But what I want you to do is, if that's big, just put it up on the shelf for right now. And
And on that shelf, if you do peek up and look at it and say, I think I just heard Emme say that I am love. So she didn't say, I am love when I do the right thing.
Yeah.
And you didn't say, I am love when I have the right car, or the right income, or the right relationship, or body. It's about the perfection of who you are.
Who you are, being real, right? Being
real.
Without all the conditions, right? All the math.
And last week you talked about worth.
I did.
And Marianne Williamson's book, A Woman's Worth, and you could put a man's worth. She said so many people talked about feeling like imposters in
Oh,
their lives.
absolutely.
So you started off with saying there was some fear about maybe someone would think you were a fraud. You know what? You know who's afraid? You're afraid
I'm afraid.
that you're not being authentic, but you don't know really what that longing is about, except you do know.
I remember. It's
remember.
about unlearning and knowing what's returning and what it's remembering who we really are, isn't it? It's not about, I always say I'm a big brain. I like to study a lot, but I really have come to realize all this is about remembering.
And I like to go to our Tuesday night groups, not because I'm a great studier, but I like to be in love, and I like to be with loving people. And that's what like-mindedness is. It's an invitation to find what you love to do so that it's always play, so that you start to really feel like you're sizzling. That
start
sizzle
sizzling, because I want to say it's that non-resistance. We're embracing what is. We are together. We're not judging one another, right?
No, and you're not trying.
And we're not trying to be anything else than where we are.
No,
Yeah?
it's a
We might walk in one day and,
You mean
each
not every
person
day is easy like this?
Each person. Well, I do believe that we can do it the hard way or the easy way. I do believe there is a choice there.
And what has made all of the difference is the few tools that we have learned along the way.
Yeah.
That people, I don't know what people's resistance, why I was resistant to ask for help. But boy, I have learned, having a mentor, having someone to guide me through this, I think the judgment, learning not to measure.
Right.
It wasn't whether you thought you were good or whether you thought you were bad. Neither one was ahead of the game. What you wanted to do was find yourself right in the middle.
Yeah.
That was such a huge tool for me to learn that, don't try to, overdo it towards that perfectionist self. So don't stay frozen and don't do anything,
Right.
Thinking, oh, how bad am I? I don't even want to get out of bed. Just bring myself into the middle. And then it's just showing up and maybe letting that inner voice, because I've heard you say it's about, the inside. It's inside. So what's inside?
Yeah.
The I am of who we are, that love, that whisper of love, that, what do we call it? That gut feeling, that intuition?
Yeah, and last week I talked about this. The first book, you remind me of the first book I ever read when I decided to look inward. Now, that was before 2011 when I had my awakening. So really, we're always on this path no matter what. We're always here evolving, expanding. So I remember the first book was called The Places That Scare You.
Well, that's interesting.
Yes,
We're right back.
I picked that book up and I started reading because I was scared to look inside myself. And some of you out there today, just raise your hand. Are you scared to look in? You know what I was scared about? I was scared that I was going to find out there was really something bad with me. That there was something wrong with me.
Oh.
Because all my life I worked on myself to be right. I had to be right. It's all this right, wrong stuff. Be a perfect, right? Be a good girl. Please others,
I can relate to thinking there might be something bad inside, so I was so not willing to look at it. I read Brian Weiss's book, Many Lives, Many Masters.
Oh, yes.
So I was going to have, it was going to be something in my past. It wasn't going to be about me. I needed to
Certainly
drag in some other past life that's where the missing piece was, not in me.
Yeah.
That was fun. We've come a long way.
We've come a long way. And one of the things I really remember of reading that book was that what we got back to is being the gift. I realized when I started looking in, and I talked about it a little bit last week, that we are the treasure. We're the gold. Inside, we're the gold. That's where our love is. Our God lives, is in us. And I remembered, as I started looking in, that was the the hinge pin. I think that's the one thing was the first step that I took was really to look inward, because what I discovered wasn't what I thought I was going to discover. I started seeing that I'm really a pretty cool person.
Yeah.
You know?
So can I throw in another word?
Yeah.
So maybe some of your listeners out there are thinking, I'm not really afraid. And I would say, well, check in on anxiety. I had a wonderful dance with anxiety for years. I just absolutely thought that was my normal. And it was my normal then. You know, some of that, there's languages that say hypervigilance. You know, did you ever stop at a red light and you're sort of looking at the other cars and drivers and imagining the mayhem they could get you into? That's called anxiety. I mean, there's people out there that might relate to that.
Yeah, because fear shows up in many different ways. That phobia, fear of love, right? That's just one. You know, fear of heights, fear of the anxiety,
How many children were raised with, oh wow, if that doesn't hurt, I'll give you something to really cry about, or, you know.
Right, that fear of being separate, right? That abandonment, you know. I think that for me, that's been a strong, you know, feeling separate and that original abandonment.
Haven't you had people come to you and say, my mother told me if I didn't stop begging for that toy in the store, she was going to walk out of the store and leave me. And you know what? She did. Yeah. And I'm going like, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't perfect. Next time I'd be more perfect.
Right.
Conditioning's a big
it does
barrier at times.
It is a barrier. So, and then that, when that happens, we keep thinking that our love is outside of ourselves. You know, we're seeking the love outside of us, right? And so, you know, we brought up a few fears, right? Fear of the fear of love, right? But no, you know, like you could feel fear equals loss, right? Or fear equals pain.
Yeah, that, you know, the pain of separation. Like,
and you know what? I just learned this. This is something where I'm on this path. So, you know, something I learned is that it was quite interesting. I spent a weekend at your home, and one day on a Saturday, and this past Saturday, and I did realize that sometimes what our parents show us of what we think love is, we as a child might interpret that as I did, it was painful. My parents argued all the time, and they were angry. And so I didn't realize that, but I realized that I carried that kind of forward in my relationships. And when I asked for my divorce, I thought my former husband was angry. And then one day I sat down and I wrote down, I studied with Byron Katie, and it was called Loving What Is. It was a Loving What Is. And I was in New York, and it was 3 a.m. We had to wait for the 3 a.m. train, so I had several hours. And one of Byron Katie's statements is I am blank, you're feeling, because. And I had 3 pages written out, and I wrote, I am angry because. And it dawned on me, it wasn't my former husband that's angry. I'm angry. I'm an angry woman. You know, I was, not anymore, because I realized what was trying to surface was my authority. And what that story is really trying to get back to, I realized what I resisted. So if I resisted love, or if I resisted pain, what I resisted persists in my life. And lots of times what I rediscovered is that it's going to be mirrored. You're going to draw that to you. Because people outside of ourselves aren't our enemies. No. They're really our teachers, especially if we get triggered. So that was being mirrored to me, for me to be in non-resistance to my own anger. So for my natural self to be to rise up into my own authority and to author my own life.
And to embrace the fact that every feeling we have is an okay feeling.
Yes.
So for all the children that learn not to be angry or not to feel bad, because
or have that anxiety, right?
Or have that anxiety, we get to learn to just love
it, embrace
love
it, be in non-resistance to what is.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you just to stay tuned because we're taking a commercial break right now, and when we're going to come back, join us because we're going to continue the conversation of non-resistance and then love, and with my friend Gail, and I will see you in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching my show, Creating a New Normal. All about going beyond your normal and creating and becoming the author of your own life and reclaiming your authority and creating that life of partnership. Because it really starts with you first. Prosperity, purpose, and play. So if you would like to come into my door space and get to know me a little bit better so I can get to know you a little bit better, you can check me out at my website, Creating a New Normal, and you can contact me through /contact, and I have 3 complimentary discovery sessions of your new normal, and I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. And secondly, you can like my business page on Facebook, Creating a New Normal, and then also you can access me through just going out and getting on my newsletter, my list. And I have actually some videos now out there for you to be able to really learn some more of my favorite practices from my midwife bag of tricks. And there's also Instagram and then Twitter that you can contact me through. So I'm looking forward to coming back and playing a little bit more with you next week on creating your new normal. So let's just go beyond our normal and let's just thrive in our lives. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.
Welcome back to my show, Creating Your New Normal with Love. And if you've just joined us, what we're talking about tonight is actually love. And we've been having a conversation. We're talking about 3 attributes: fearless faith, what comes up. Typically fear of love comes up when we talk about love. I experienced that for myself tonight. So we're going to talk about overcoming those barriers and what is returning when you're experiencing that fear. And then we're going to talk about non-resistance, and we're going to talk about loving what is. So welcome back with Gail. This is Gail Courville, and we're both conduits for change. I can do it. So Gail, let me ask you a question. Okay, so
I'm ready.
we talked about all these fears: fear of love, fear of being hurt, fear, sometimes just feeling safe, right?
Right.
Fear maybe that you're a burden, right? So you've got to do it all yourself.
And sometimes just being where you are, there's so much fear of change that
that's true. Right.
You can be saying you don't like where you are, but some people just are in the fear of change. Period. They've lost that hope that there might be something better out there.
Right.
So,
and remember, I love this because what was our first, what is love, right? There's so many definitions to love out there. So I looked up the one from the Bible, 1 Corinthians 13:4-7. You might have even had this if you're married, read at your wedding. It says, love is patient. Love is kind. Love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. So that always hope. Love is always hope.
Always hope.
Present. So if you're not experiencing that right now, if you are experiencing some fear, if you're looking outside yourself to feel love, we're asking you to come back home with yourself and to just be with whatever might be up for you, with you right now. Fear, sadness, you know, when you go to a movie, right? And something's going on, you cry, right? Have you ever cried at a movie? I think we all have, haven't we? Right. Well, what happened? It's just what's returning is our own love and our joy. Yeah. That sadness, that grief that we feel in the movies is just because it's here in you. And it's just what's happening is your love and your joy is returning. So if you're experiencing faith, what I've discovered in me, and then I'd like you to share, I've discovered that when I'm experiencing this faith, I've really lost sight of who I really am. And when I embrace that, if I'm really in non-resistance and say, oh, yo fear, right? Yeah. When I call yo fear, I feel fear. I feel fear of love. If I embrace that with my own love, what returns is my confidence, my courage, and my trust. I trust me. I come back home to me. I trust my love in me. And then I have the ability to experience my life and love my life and love my joy and follow my joy and follow my enthusiasm. So how about you?
So maybe somebody out there has heard this, fake it till you make it.
Oh yeah.
That's been an easy one for me. I had some great advice from my mother when I was young. And she said, don't worry about, not wearing the right thing. Yeah. She said, everybody else is already worried if they're wearing the right thing. So just remember that. So that sort of, that gave me that little opportunity to jump in, because I was like thinking, okay, other people are busy thinking about themselves. I can't be the only one worrying about myself, so I'll jump in and I'll try it. So maybe fake it till I make it. Or I like this, the concept that if you don't have the courage now, well, try doing it afraid. Because, that afraid doesn't really have a bondage. I mean, I'm not in jail. Mm-hmm. I'm not locked up. There's nothing holding, I'm not tied down except by something unseen. So I'll break through it and I'll do it afraid because I know what I want. And it doesn't mean that I know further down a long ways away what I would like, but I know that if I'm in pain or if I'm in distress, if I don't like the feeling I'm having, I can move towards something different.
Yeah.
And so I do it afraid.
Yeah. Boy, you said a lot there, Gail, and I had some thoughts. And so what I'm going to encourage you out there is to really just jump in and face your fear and call. If you have a question, call now, and we're here available to talk with you. And the number is 804-915-5202. And just call, because that would be your first step to be in non-resistance. It reminded me, when you said jump in, something that we always said, I owned a business and we were in sales, and so we always said, what you resist persists. Yeah. And that if you were afraid, do it afraid, because taking action is really all it is. It's like if you look fear into the face, it's just really up to be seen, and then what returns again is your courage. It comes back, and then you can actually move forward in your own love and allow yourself to be yourself. It gets out of the way.
It makes me think about what is a successful person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not the person that just tried once.
No.
It's the person that knows so many failures. So you don't get to the love that you're really looking for until you build it. It's almost like it's baby steps of small victories. It's like, wow.
It is a baby step, right? To take
I think
a
so.
step toward your fear. and embrace your fear
Right.
and love whatever is up wherever you are. And right at this moment, I'd like to just do that. Is that in all of our watchers right now, just give it a try. You know, I would like you, whatever you might be experiencing, whether it's fear or anger or upset or struggle or whatever name you like to give that, if it's other than love, I'd just like you to sit and just be with it and then embrace it. Just love it. Just wrap your arms around you.
You know what else? Think about, I've been thinking about this a lot. There's a great book out there called When Breath Becomes Air. And so many people, when we talk about love, we can also be talking about God, can't we? Or that invisible creative force.
Spirit.
I mean, spirit. I mean, that really big love. You know, and we really can get in connection with it through that breath. Because if we call this air, and then one day we become, through breath, you know, we're in that delivery room and something happens that fills our lungs and we take that breath and we come to life.
Yeah.
What made the difference between air and breath? And isn't that breathing love? To me, it's like just such a mystery. We talk about love, and I think it's that connection.
Yeah.
And it's inside, Emme. It's inside.
Yes,
it's not
us. It's not all around. I'll tell you, one of the things is that I realized Spirit Lives in Me is a book I read, and we studied it at our church. It was written by Wallace Wattles, and it was it wasn't Think and Grow Rich, it was on
prosperity.
It was on
some
prosperity,
kind,
but it was about, you know, so is it surpassing me right now? But what I realized, he talked about, this was written in 1869, and he talked about there was this thinking stuff. It permeated everything, and it was all around us, and it was inside us. And I was sitting there in a book study, probably the fourth or fifth in. That's why we're talking their baby steps, right? And all of a sudden, I remembered, oh, the Spirit, that's God, that's all around me. That's in me. And, you know, in the Bible it says God is love.
That is the definition.
I realized I am love because
You're divine.
I was made in the image and likeness of God.
Absolutely.
And that's when you take that little step and turn around at you and start looking in. That's the activating code, is starting to look inward, because you activate that divine love of who you are. If we're always looking outside of ourselves, we're seeking outside of ourselves what we really truly are seeking to be balanced within ourselves. And you were talking about that center point.
And you know, we're talking and someone might be listening and say, wow, that's spiritual, or that's religious, or whatever. So let's take it to science. What did Albert Einstein say?
What did he say?
I think he said
a lot of things.
I think he said so much. And one of the things was, you can't solve a problem with the same kind of thinking.
Yeah.
So think a different way. And again, that's what you're inviting people to do, creating a new normal. Just change your thinking a little bit. Take a baby step. Dive in. Get
really,
excited about your life.
It's actually bypassing that brain. Okay, Einstein, I have it on my website because I love that quote. You can't, you know, this is what, I love this. You can't solve the problem on the same level of consciousness that it was created. And so we're really talking about going beyond our normal and getting outside of what we know. And that's what I call magic and miracles, right?
Yep.
Looking at things differently. Opening our minds to something else. And that's our spirit.
And talking about knowing isn't always about our thinking.
No, it's
No.
our heart, it's our knowing. This is having more access to consciousness is about your own awareness and your
Yeah.
own knowing.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to go back to being in non-resistance to what is and allowing that small self or that monkey mind to get out of the way, allowing the fear to repattern itself and restore back to the naturalness of who you are
Yeah.
and what's coming back. And it all starts with courage. It's all starting with that being in non-resistance to whatever is. If you're experiencing the fear or the anxieties of love, in whatever form that takes, it's allowing you to restore back within you that courage, the trust. I want to come back to trust because I read from somebody I've studied a lot. It's The Game of Life and How to Play It. It's Florence Scovel Shinn, and she talked about love in that book. And partly we're really talking about conditional love, right? What love isn't, right? Love isn't hurt.
No.
Love isn't pain. It's like if we have an equal sign in there, we can just take the equal sign away, right? And if we really truly want to be unconditional love, it's really writing yourself up to honoring yourself, your being, your spirit, and honoring your body. That's it. It's trusting and honoring. Isn't there an honoring of self that takes place when you choose to face fear, which isn't real, right?
Not
and you
real.
come back, it's honoring you. If you're running away from fear, what you resist persists. It's going to run after you.
So do we have that time to share with them
Yes,
that
you have
visual?
plenty of time. Yes,
Does-
we've got 10 minutes left.
Oh, we've got
so-
10 minutes left.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we'll
Then we'll
share it.
save that.
Well, I mean, we've only got 2 minutes sort of in this segment, so we couldn't. Let's share that right
We'll
now.
share that?
Yeah.
Because we were talking about the monkey mind and the fast track thinking, and you can't get settled. Oh, we have a phone
we
call.
have a phone call. Okay. Okay. Hello? Oh. I guess maybe we've lost it. If the caller called in, maybe call back. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We appreciate the
We
call.
appreciate your call. See if it comes back through. Well, I think what we can do is let's share the. Yes? It's going to come through? And which one is it? Bottom right. Right here. Hello?
Good evening, my sisters.
Hi, how are you? Yes,
I'm
hi.
enjoying.
And what's your name? You're
My name is Sylvia, that's Jewish.
Oh, nice. Hi, Shelby, is that correct?
Sylvia.
Oh,
S-Y-L. Sylvia.
Hi, Sylvia. How are you?
And I'm all women. I'm the beginning, and I'm the end.
Yes. I am.
Feel you, my sister. I feel what you are speaking
Thank
about.
you. Thank you.
Nothing else matters
Yes.
except what you are speaking. The Father is watching. We are getting closer. See, we got to feel and love. We must do these things.
Yes, and
I've been here a long time.
thank you.
My people of Africa and Cherokee,
Awesome.
we are here.
Thank you. We are here. I am here. I am that
We
I
are
am
here.
is present. And we're going to do a something here, Sylvia. Why don't you hold on to the line? We want to do this and do this with us, okay?
Yes.
We're going to do this exercise that I think really speaks to what you're saying. So, Gail, would you like to just try it?
Okay, so for the person that might be out there still wondering about that crazy mind thinking, I had a teacher say to me, picture an hourglass. Now, hourglass,
Right, with the sand
with
in
the
it,
sand
right?
in it. So take and give yourself a visual. Close your eyes, don't close your eyes, and just think about the sand at the top of that glass. And then have the bottom of the glass, that empty vessel just waiting for the sand, right at your heart, right at your heart. And now the sand starts to come through. It's just trickling, trickling, trickling down. And it's got all those thoughts with it. And just bring it down into your heart space. All of that was in the top,
Yeah.
is now settled
Right here in your heart.
right here.
And just say, silently or out loud, right now in your home, I love.
I love.
I feel.
I feel.
I touch.
I touch.
I breathe.
I breathe.
I stay.
I stay.
And what I'd like you to do is stay with that feeling of your love right here in you. And I'd like you to walk that forward into your lives. And I'm going to just now say thank you for joining Gail and I on this journey tonight of love. And we spoke about, fearless faith, non-resistance, and just love. Love is who you are. And if you'd like to reach out to me, I am a conduit for change, just like Gail is. And I do bio-optic holography facilitation. Now what this is this gives you the ability to really, I take pictures of both of your eyes. And our eyes is a map of our body, but it's a map of the unconscious feeling world. So what I know is that in that unconscious feeling world, that everything is a blueprint to be restored from your weakness into your greatest strength. And so by seeing this, I am able to help you find your greater mission, or discover with you your greater mission in life. And your greater...
My sister, I really don't want to interrupt you.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to tell you who I am.
Thank you.
I come from who built the world, the Egyptians.
Oh, wow.
See, I come from the beginning. See, I come
Yes.
from the beginning. So I love to hear you speaking about love and trying to help the lost
Okay.
people.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know what? I'm going to have to cut. I'm going to have to hang up now because it's time. Okay. And I just would like to just read one last thing to you. What's that? I would like to read one last thing just in closing. And it's another Bible verse, but it's about God. In 1 John 4:8, it says, God is love. So if we are born in that image and likeness of God, and we talked about it last week, it's accepting our own inheritance. It's aligning and accepting. Because if you inherited this is the God spark, right, that we were talking about. The Spirit is in you. And the key is to take a look inside. That's the activating, that ignites that spark and starts allowing that to grow within us. That little acorn will start sprouting and growing. The love in you will start growing. So we are love. You are loved. I am loved. I am loved. And I want you to just sit with that feeling of that space, with the hourglass, with the sand right here, knowing that you are love. And the start is really saying it silently, voicing your choice, or out loud, I am loved. That's what I'm going to leave. That's my homework for you. This week and on in, I am loved. Take that forth with you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. And next week, I invite you to come back because we're going to be talking about health. And health is really an area that I love to talk about. I discovered a lot. I remembered a lot about health. And, this goes into what we were talking about, honoring ourselves, our being, which is spirit, and honoring our bodies. And I learned a lot. And I've got a special guest next week, which is another one of our fabulous four that gets together. Her name is Marcia Andrews, and so she's going to be with me, and we're going to talk about health. It's going to be fun. Thank you, and I hope you have a great evening. Good night. Sleep well.